Hello, and welcome to another Big Data London webinar. Today we're talking about brand loyalty and how it can be enhanced with personalised customer experience. I'm Andy Steed, Content Director of Big Data London, and I'm joined today by Neill Brookman from Treasure Data. Hi, Neill.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. So these sessions are obviously designed to be interactive. Do ask your questions in the question bar below, and I'll endeavour to ask as many as I possibly can at the end when we've got a little bit of time dedicated to Q&A. In terms of the stream, if you lose the stream at any point, you shouldn't, but just in case, if you hit refresh in the browser, you'll jump straight back in. But without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to our featured presenter today. So over to you, Neill.
Thanks, Andy. So I'm going to share my screen. Perfect. So as Andy said, my name is Neill Brookman. I am Director of Solution Engineering for a company called Treasure Data. So the idea of today's session is to talk about improving customer experience with the help of data. So if we start thinking outside of our working world for the moment as consumers, COVID has changed the dynamics of the way in which we live our lives. The world evolves around us more than it has done before. We don't go out to the world as much anymore, apart from going digitally, but instead we bring the world to us. We use our various devices to make sure our world keeps moving, which means a frictionless experience becomes imperative. It's almost as if we've had to reorder Maslow's hierarchies of needs: food, shelter, Wi-Fi, one-touch purchasing, same-day delivery, hassle-free returns. Some of these behavioural changes will stick, some will disappear, and some will be diluted when we move further into 2021. But we as organisations need to be ready and adapt as the world changes around our consumers. We need to be there for them to enable their lives. It's no secret that the pandemic has propelled digital adoption, and obviously not just in EMEA. It's a global phenomenon, and one which requires attention as we need to adapt to these changes, and fast. Regardless of where you are based as an organisation, we still have the same questions we need to respond to. Questions like, is there a new buyer journey? What are our customers' expectations? What is the impact on losing customers and winning new ones? What does loyalty look like these days? Before we answer that directly, let's take a step back and look to understand some of the changes we have come about as a result of COVID. These changes vary from major upheavals in our minor tweaks and adjustments to our day-to-day behaviour. For example, the way we interact with our friends. At one stage, it was looking like Zoom gin and tonics were the only want to function and hang out. However, as we move through, it's necessarily likely that minor changes like masks and appropriate distancing will suffice. The same with families. Thankfully, homeschooling is not the new normal, but a few small changes to make and less frequent visiting is all it takes to resume to some kind of normality in that space. Travel could be a little more complex with vaccination certificates and the likes and possible random testing at airports, so potentially more delays and queues, so a fairly medium impact there. But the one thing that has changed significantly and is showing signs of being likely to leave a more lasting impression is the way in which we interact online. This just about sums up my last 12 months, my 100 square metre lifestyle. The digital advance was already happening. The coronavirus pandemic just accelerated it. The impact of this catalyst is that there are more new people going online. Those who are already going online are going online even more, for longer, and they're shopping from a wider variety of categories. So it's no surprise online spend has increased in line with these trends. Those who shopped online already shopped online more. Those who hadn't shopped online before shopped online for the first time. Certain items we hadn't considered buying online had to be bought online, such as cars. Working from home is written into contracts. Working from home is commonplace. So from a B2B perspective, that makes it even harder to track and have relevant conversations with our prospects. Connected experience is expected. Connected devices are also important as you start work on your laptop and finish off in the evening on your tablet. We as consumers expect this to be a seamless experience. Again, our consumers expect the connected experience. So what has this meant for businesses? Delivery speed and cost was a decisioning factor in purchasing more now than before. It's a similar story for the returns process. Cost and ease became more important. Accurate stock levels needed to avoid bad experience. Extensive information available for products online. There is no more touch and feel at point of purchase. Reviews have become even more important. Companies live or die by their star ratings. Customer expectations on personalisation are through the roof. Whilst global online content consumption has doubled in 2020, according to a recent Forbes article, keeping track of those interactions and maintaining relevance in our consumers' lives has become increasingly hard, especially when there are so many digital footprints to disentangle, interpret, and understand. The good news is that with all of this change, it is trackable and traceable. This binary breadcrumb trail through the forest of digital has been left for us to follow and make sense of. We need to ingest consumer data from all sources, on and offline and cross-device, to create a rich picture of who they are and understand how to interact with them. Essentially, we need to store and translate millions of consumer touchpoints to help us understand individual buyer behaviors and journeys. This means that as a large enterprise organization with masses of information flowing through your business every single second, you need to take command of this data and create better customer experiences that make for happier customers and a more profitable business. You need to maintain relevance in the connected age. The good news is that it can be harnessed and converted into a really strong customer experience. And our customers know we have this data. They've been online a lot in the last 12 months than they ever have, and so expectations are high. So high, in fact, that I believe there's a new layer to the value model. This data doesn't come easily. Consumers are so savvy with their data, it feels like there is a new element to the value exchange, data. It used to be, is this brand worth my time and money? Does this interaction provide enough value in some way that it is worth my time and money? Well, now we can add data to that equation, because in return for the data, our consumers are expecting more than they have done in the past. They know what is possible with data and how it can be used well. You may not think it, but we are all competitors with Amazon, Apple, Google. Think of their interactions with these brands and the experience they have. That is the bar for expectations. The value exchange is now, am I getting the relevance I expect from this brand in return for the data they hold on me? Life is more digital. There's more data available to help us get it right. Our customers know this, and they have high expectations of the trade in time, money, and data. So yes, expectations are high, but all is not doom and gloom, as this quote highlights. High achievement always takes place in the framework of high expectations. That's from Charles Kettering, an engineer who went on to run research at General Motors for 30 years. There is a great piece of research that, according to Forbes, 81% of customers will pay more for a great customer experience. So there is a wonderful trade-off here that if we have their data and use it to preempt their needs or use it to be relevant in their lives, they will pay more for our product or service. So to summarize, yes, customers expect more, but they are willing to pay for it in terms of either time, money, or data. If you are a regular coffee drinker, you know that your local barista knows you and treats you like an individual. They greet you personally and they know what you want for that specific day and time of day. Coffee in the morning with a pastry, tea in the afternoon. That's what customers want from brands. They want people to know them and treat them like an individual, not a number. So if we have a look at these two people, they look the same. They have exactly the same data, so they must be the same person, right? Actually, person one is Prince Charles, and person two is Ozzy Osbourne. Now, I don't know these people personally, but I'm pretty sure you wouldn't want to treat them as the same, as one or both of them will be extremely unhappy. That's why you need to have as much information as possible to help you identify your users, so you can treat each of them correctly. An abandoned basket retargeting campaign is something we get asked for all of the time. Our customers want to send an email or do social retargeting after 60 minutes of an abandoned basket. In theory, this sounds great, and you will get some uplift. But again, you need to get the complete picture. What if the user tried to purchase and they got an error as part of the checkout? You send them a retargeting email with an offer. They go back to the website, they try to purchase again, they get the same error. You have immediately lost that customer and provided a negative customer experience. So what if you had your web logs as part of your data sources? Then you could see that this person had an error during checkout, and you can push this audience to your call center to contact them rather than pushing them into a retargeting campaign, which would increase the customer experience. You could also use data science scores to determine their propensity to buy or their lifetime value, and then use that as decisioning as whether to send the users to the call center, do a retargeting campaign, or do nothing. This is why you need to centralize all of your data, and not just data you think is needed for marketing purposes. This includes behavioral data, offline data, and all of your historical data, as only then can you build a complete picture and ensure you are providing the best experience to each and every person. However, answers to important business questions are quite often locked away in fragmented data. You have different identifiers in each system. You have no way to join all of this data together to give you a true 360-degree view. So you can't create a seamless experience with siloed data. Wouldn't it be better if you could join all of the systems together, removing fragmented data and producing a centralized view of each and every customer? So that's a great idea, but how can you manage all of this data at scale and across multiple channels? And this is where a customer data platform, or CDP, fits in, as it helps to join all of your systems together, providing that true 360-degree view of each and every customer and prospective customer. But you have a ton of data. You may have millions of customer records, billions of events per month, multiple channels, including both online and offline data. How can you make sense of all of this information and still treat each customer as an individual and provide the best customer experience? So this is where you need to use data science and machine learning. The machine will make sense of the data and provide your marketers with the insights and intelligence they need to improve customer experience. And more importantly, to ensure you're compliant with data regulations such as GDPR. So enterprise CDPs like Treasure Data can store data from any channel. So whether it's web, mobile, social, email, CRM, etc. And this includes both online and offline channels, and both anonymous and known users. We can also retrieve and store data from third-party systems like Axiom and Tapad to enrich the profile. And more importantly, tools like Treasure Data can store data in any format. So you don't have to do anything to the data before you send it to the platform, send it in its raw format, then use the extensive data tools in Treasure Data CDP to manipulate it and put it in a usable format. You're then able to start building your 360-degree customer view. And enterprise CDPs will usually store 5 different types of data. The first is profile data for personalization. So for example, your name or email address that you would send to your email tool. Then you have profile data for segmentation. For example, find me all gold status loyalty members or people within 60 miles of a specific location. Then you have data for security. For example, only send users that are given consent for email to the email tool. Then you have behavioral data. So for example, find all people that have attended at least 3 events in the last 90 days and met at least one director in retail as part of a meeting. And then lastly, we have data for machine learning. For example, calculating propensity scores, churn scores, lookalike modeling, or customer lifetime value. So with a customer data platform, your IT team will manage all of the data coming in. They do the manipulation and they put it in a format that you need and can use. This includes data cleansing to deduplicate records, ensure poor data is tidied, and get things in the right state. Then we have identity resolution, mapping all data that belong to the same person to the same user record. Then data enrichment and manipulation, so things like getting data from third-party sources. It could be a weather feed, so you can target people based on their local weather, or things like income from Axiom. Then doing aggregations, like adding up all of the orders to create a lifetime value, or getting the latest email open time and putting it in a field for your marketers to use. Then lastly, adding data science and machine learning to automatically get sense from all of the big data coming in at the top, calculating the propensity scores, churn scores, etc. And this can be pre-programmed out of the box, so you don't need a huge team of data scientists. All of this happens, and the aim is for your technical team to build a nice marketing-friendly view of the data for your marketers to work on. Field names will be set so that you understand them. Only data you need will be surfaced, and all of this will give you a starting point to build campaigns for marketing purposes and increase that customer experience. So if we have a look at a data flow, you have all of your raw data coming in at the top of the funnel, as much as you like in any format. As an example, Treasure Data is currently receiving over 2 million records per second, and one of our larger customers is sending us 20 billion records per day. And this is not a limit, this is just our current performance. So your IT team would have set up the system to do all of its magic and get the data in a format for you to use, including the data science and machine learning models and using full behavioral data. So this means you have less reliance on IT to get your data from specific channels, and you can just use the data when you need. Then you work on this main segment or view of data to start building your marketing segments and activate them to your relevant channels. Also, the behavioral data from those channels will come back in to the top of the funnel to complete the loop, meaning you're taking real-time behavioral actions into account as part of your user's journey. And tools like Treasure Data make it very easy for your IT team to work with the data, to integrate sources, manipulate data, and get it ready for you. We're here to make life easier and to get what you need. If you need more data to use and build better marketing segments, your IT team can get that ready for you by just using a web interface, and can do that very quickly and not take months. So what are the benefits of having a unified customer view? You're able to provide consistent messaging across channels and use data from any channel to determine next best action on other channels. And this includes both online and offline. You have no more siloed or duplicate data. Everything is centralized. You have more informed marketing decisions, as you can utilize all of the data and machine learning algorithms to improve your decision making. You are confident of the accuracy and relevancy of the data when using it for targeting. And you can build detailed segments with no limitations. And all of this is both anonymous and known users as well. So any PII data is also used. So what we want to do is start to simplify outcomes and not data. So firstly, you need to be able to unify profiles, managing consent, and removing duplicates for known and unknown customers. You want to segment on values and behaviors using any attributes, goals, and things like customer lifetime value. Focus your budgets using triggers and next best actions most likely to engage with your audience and convert them. Personalize in real time and orchestrate cross-channel based on journey phase, their preferences and location. Increase return on average spend with predictive scoring for lookalike modeling and suppression. And lastly, optimize your strategy with testing, insights, and intelligence at your fingertips. So I'd like to bring this to life for you by walking through an example with one of our customers. So this is a global automotive brand. They needed to move from siloed data to unified profiles, from big data to actionable insights, from missed opportunities to relevant customer journeys, by bringing the tech stacks together to work in perfect unison and have treasure data at the heart of their ecosystem. Our customer is using data and insights to distill big data into actionable intelligence. They're using treasure data to help with multiple capabilities across all of their channels. And as you can see, there are some examples in the slide here. So what was the result of implementing treasure data? In an 8-month period last year, they realized $32 million additional revenue across 14 use cases. And this is roughly $70 million annualized. So a substantial increase by putting in a CDP like treasure data. So the key is being able to realize the potential of your data. And for me, this is 3 things. Firstly, your data needs to be collected from all sources across your business. It needs to be contactable, campaignable, so that it's deduped to the point of a single unified record so that it can be analyzed or mined to generate accurate insights. And lastly, it needs to be connected to your other MarTech systems to enable the activities. And a CDP will do this for you and will enable these 5 core points that will enhance your business's ability to be more relevant to your customers. Number 1, to connect the customer to view their customer journey from unknown to known customer. And this is quite a powerful view to have. Secondly, to enable real-time flow of data through businesses, which increases your ability to be relevant and timely. Number 3, to segment data in real time based on actual behaviors, which again increases relevance and capitalizes on behaviors your customer are showing. Fourth is to use all data to provide a connected view of your customer. And lastly, connect your channels to enable accurate and timely messaging for your customer via campaigns, and these can be real-time through any channel. So there are benefits to your customers and prospects in terms of being more relevant and driving loyalty, which in turn benefits your business revenue-wise. Add to this accurate and real-time data flowing through your business, deeper insights and accurate forecasting and reporting across all channels. This, in essence, is why a CDP is the missing piece in your MarTech puzzle. So just a last slide. You need to be able to use every bit of data to provide the best experience for each and every customer, treating each one as an individual. So moving over to any questions.
Hi, Neil. I'll kick a couple of questions off. Do keep them coming in. Firstly, we were talking a little bit before we went live about what's happened in the last year, etc. Do you think that the pandemic, COVID, has made this brought this more to the fore, made this more essential for marketing folks than it was previously?
It definitely has, for a number of reasons. So firstly, the competition is much higher. So if we look at retail as an example, you have tools like Shopify that enables somebody to get up and running with a full professional e-commerce experience for paying a few dollars a month, and they can start selling products. So you've all of a sudden got a lot more competition. You're not just competing with 30 shops in a shopping mall. So you have to provide that customer experience. And that's not just the checkout experience, it's all around customer service, it's around returns. So you need to be able to see everything around your customers. So as an example, does a customer have a complaint open? If you're marketing somebody and trying to get them to buy more, but you have an active complaint open through your call center, that's a negative area. So you need to tie your call center in. And then looking at all of their purchase behavior. Another example I like to use is for telcos. You want to do a retention campaign But what if you have a customer that is a very low customer, maybe they don't pay their bills on time and they're actually costing you money. So maybe you would be better to let them churn. So it's having sort of everything in one place and giving you that insights and intelligence so the marketers can make the right decision to get head and shoulders above all of the competition.
Perfect, perfect. And we've had a question in, it mentions GDPR. I think I'll broaden it, just privacy, security, governance, that kind of thing. I'm guessing that is something that is covered with customer data platforms, or certainly your ones, right? How would it work for a person using it though? How would they guarantee it to their internal or external customers?
So the key is being able to store that sort of fine-grained data. So for sort of regulations like GDPR, you've got fine-grained consent. You may be using an external consent platform, so you know exactly what you can and can't do. It's not just I consent to my data being used. So a tool like Treasure Data will be able to store that fine-grained consent, and then part of your rules within the platform would say, let's segment people based on email consent for this particular channel. So it could be for a multi-brand company, that each brand has fine-grained consent. So when you're connecting to your activation channels, you'll be utilizing that data to make sure you're not sending data to the downstream system when you don't have consent. So the system is then taking that headache away, ensuring you're compliant. If somebody removes consent, they're immediately put into a different audience and they'll be suppressed from the email tool. So it's having that centralized data. It doesn't matter where someone is giving consent, whether it's through a website, whether it's through OneTrust or an external system, whether it's through a physical event where they've given written consent, it's all centralized. So that's where CDPs can really help. Okay.
There's a question here about the customer example. A couple of questions. We'll leave the second half about the cost. We can take that offline perhaps, but is there a sort of specific example, I suppose, of a customer? I watch this, I interact here, or something. Obviously it won't be a real one, but a more personalised example, if you like, for someone who's buying a car, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely, and that's where automotive, they have lots of channels. So it's now you've got web where people can buy, you have in-store. So Treasure Data has a number of areas where we can help. So we're very strong in big data, so things like IoT. So we are hooked into connected car, so we're able to get behavioral data based on driving behavior. So that's all part of the single view of customer. We're also able to look at entire historical purchases. So we're able to build algorithms on when is a person more likely to purchase? Do they change their vehicle every 3 years, every 4 years? Do they keep it for 10 years? So all of that is then being used to predict behavior. So we're getting that behavioral data from the website, and we're able to track content affinity. So what types of vehicles are they looking at? SUVs, sports cars, convertibles. So all of this goes into the algorithm to determine the next best action. So with the example and the $32 million of increased revenue was joining the dots between all of the systems, doing predictive modeling to determine when they're likely to purchase, things like hooking into the chat, live chat on a website. So when somebody comes in who are known to us and they've sort of done certain behavior, the chat people can push a notification and get straight away chatting to them and be proactive. So it's joining the dots and just making sure that you're looking at cross-channel. We also, with this particular example, we have what we call an in-store SDK that's connected onto a mobile device. So if somebody is a particular customer of this brand and they go into a dealership, we can track that they've been into that dealership. We can see when they went, how many times they've been, and we can also track their movement through the dealership. So which vehicles did they look at? And that all goes into your propensity scores. So it's the big data and predicting the next action.
Okay. And one about the brand loyalty question that we obviously started the presentation with. Actually, from your example, which I really liked about Ozzy Osbourne and Prince Charles, is the effect that this sort of thing can have on brand loyalty determined or influenced at all by the age of the customer? Is brand loyalty easier to obtain with? I hate the whole Gen X, Gen Z thing, but the younger audience who are more multi-channel than an older audience, perhaps, or has the rulebook been kind of torn up recently?
Yeah, I'd say it's almost the other way around. The biggest challenge with the younger generation is that they're very vocal on social networks. So one poor experience and all of their friends know about it within milliseconds, and all of a sudden it's going viral. And it's also sort of negative things do start to go through social networks, even if they're not true. It's sort of people assume things, Chinese whispers. So that's the big difference between sort of the older generation or my sort of generation, where we grew up with sort of 4 channels on the TV. You had to watch adverts. You made a cup of tea when the adverts were on. You watched what your parents watched. Now there's choice. Now, if they don't want to watch something, they go on to Netflix, skip to something else. If they don't like that song on Spotify, they go to the next one. They're not listening to the radio and having to put up with things. And that resonates in their purchase behavior as well. They're now, if they're not happy with something, they're not brand loyal. I mean, Amazon is probably the only brand that I would say people are brand loyal, maybe Apple as well in a different vertical. But people aren't. It's all down to cost, ease of purchase, how cheap is it to get delivery. So Amazon doing free same-day delivery is a real bonus. And how easy is it to send things back? In my day, you would purchase a pair of shoes, you try them on. Nowadays, people buy 3 or 4 different sizes because they don't know which size is the right one. And then they'll send others back, or they'll buy a load of dresses, try them all on, send them back. So you have to manage that returns experience. And some brands are very, very good at that, and some brands are very poor. And that's the difference, in my view, particularly in retail, between positive and negative experience. Perfect.
Well, I'm going to end this with a more kind of general question about this kind of project. So I imagine there's a few people watching who are, got it in their mind that they're going to start some sort of CDP project at some point. Have you got any sort of advice for taking the first steps, and any kind of obstacles they might want to look out for when they're doing so?
Yeah, so the key is to start small. Don't try to boil the ocean, as I like to say. So you have an ideal end goal where everything is connected. But the good example is with the automotive company that I showed the use case for. There's 14 use cases that they're doing. So each of those were rolled out individually. So part of it is looking at sort of where are the quick fixes. So what can we do very quickly, very easily, with minimal disruption to get a higher return on investment. So it may be just joining your email and your CRM and your web channels. So start with that as a starter, and then over time you start to add more and more to it to get more increase. The problem comes in when people want to do everything, and then it's a 2-year project, they haven't received value, and that's a more negative. So it's just put in, say, start small, and we have experts within our business to sort of go through where's the end goal. Let's look at where we know return on investment. It could be just with your social retargeting. A big challenge is that people are retargeting and they have a 48 or 72 hour time between getting data from the website or from others. So they're retargeting people that have actually purchased. And not only is that a complete waste of ad spend, but it's also a really negative experience. And I'm sure all of us have had that experience where you've been on a website, you're looking at a product, you're getting retargeted on social, you buy the product, and 2 days later, they're still pushing it to you. And you're just sat there thinking, what does that mean? And the challenge as well, if you sort of put yourself in other people's shoes, I'm a very technical person. I understand how systems work under the covers. But if I use my wife as an example, she doesn't understand. If she goes on to a website and says, don't send me any more emails, she expects that to happen immediately. She's not expecting a 72-hour process to go between systems. So you need to have the dots joined. And it's not necessarily sort of what you're doing to somebody as a positive customer experience. It's what you're doing becomes a negative experience. So it's sometimes flipped the other way around. It's not knowing when to target someone, it's knowing when not to target them and what not to target them with.
Perfect. Well, thanks very much, Neill. I think we'll draw this to a close. But I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed it today. It's nice to talk about the sort of customer experience angle. We haven't covered that in these for a little while, or for as long as I can remember, in fact. So yeah, no, that was really interesting. And thanks for a great presentation. And we hope to see everybody soon. So thanks, Neill. Goodbye.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Bye-bye.